Hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody. It's been quite a while since the last stream on this channel, and we're gonna have a bunch of them coming up as well. But so far, so good. We're starting out with this one today. It's gonna be another ladder moderated town hall stream, so bring on your concerns or leave them down in the YouTube comments in case you're watching over there. I'll give it, as always, a couple of minutes for people to come by and just see if there's people who end up having stuff to share. But for now, let's just wait for people to trickle in case they've gotten the memo a little bit late. Again, this is one of the ones that wasn't scheduled as clearly as, well, widely announced. I said last week I was gonna stream it at this time. However, I only announced it was gonna be today. I didn't actually announce a set time until yesterday even, I believe. Maybe 2 days ago, but just in case you're wondering why for this one and for the last one we don't have a huge live audience, that might be part of it, because the scheduling for the last two shows has been a bit last minute in a sense. So that shouldn't stop us from discussing our relevant topics here. There's no hurry either, but I'll slowly but surely transition into the first topic here, if you don't mind. I've got the topics and everything set up, it looks like. I haven't streamed in quite a while, so actually feels a little bit clunky again. But it feels as though we can safely head into the first topic of discussion here. Let me pull up the data or the quotes or whatever for you real quick so you can follow along. As you can see in the title, topic number 1, Boogie and Anti on team making flaws. That's not just the two of them, but they are the folks whose opinions I've been able to note and preserve for this segment to be presented in. And here you guys go. You can see we've got their opinions there. I don't have the direct quotes, but I've got them summed up in the bottom right box as always. So what are we talking about here? Well, we're talking about ladder games, obviously, and we're talking about the way that the players are divided into teams. Of course, this doesn't apply to CTON, but basically for every other ladder game where you've got a teamer, we are currently using the system. Probably a good idea to just explain that real quick. The system we're currently using is that the highest ranked player in the lobby decides which of the 6 lowest ranked players form a team. So he divides the lowest 6 players in the lobby, he divides them into 2 teams of 3. And then the second highest rated player in the lobby gets to choose which of the teams they want to play with. Now, in and of itself, that's a pretty decent system, I feel like, right? That's the classic, I don't know, that's probably this allegory of one person dividing the bunch up and the other person getting to choose. I mean, that's probably like a biblical metaphor even or something. So it's a really old system. That's why probably most people have accepted it so far. It's pretty tried and tested. The issue with it, however, is probably in the details, as always. All right, because it depends how exactly people have been applying it. And there's multiple ways to, well, I wouldn't say cheat the system, but at least to gain an advantage through it, or to at least optimize it for your own personal gain as one of the 2 captains that everybody might not necessarily be in agreement with. So, yeah, what are we talking about there? Well, the one thing is you can optimize the teams for balance, of course, for balance in terms of what would make the most equal game possibly, right? So which distribution of players would make it so the game would be most closely a 50-50 affair. That's one thing you can do. But then again, most people aren't, well, I shouldn't say most, but there's people that aren't really concerned with making the game as equal as possible. You could also try to be a captain and try to apply some mind games here, right? Because if you're the one who gets to separate the players into teams, you can optimize it for elo gain, for example. So you can put all the underrated players in one team and the overrated players in the other team, hoping that the other captain chooses the overrated players, because they might overrate them, is the point here, so that you get a team that has a higher chance of winning deceptively, or has a higher chance of gaining elo due to their current position on the ladder. So there's ways to play with this system. And then, of course, being the second captain, you're the one that gets to pick the team. So oftentimes it's really difficult for the first captain to make fair teams. So oftentimes it ends up being where the second captain just gets a clearly better team, and that might make it a bit awkward for the first captain again. So the way they try to counteract that is, for example, by rewarding the captain who picks, or who ends up having to play with the weaker of the two teams, awarding that team a CIV pick, or 2 CIV picks even, or 3 CIV picks. I've seen it all at this point. So that's kind of something that's well, it's a gray area, right? Because it's not stated in the rules that you can't, or well, that you can or can't do it. Really, it's just not mentioned in the rules. But people have just been using the CIV pick as a way to balance the teams if they feel like the teams couldn't be properly balanced. But at that point, you're screwing with the ELO formula again, because you're getting a different, well, just a different likelihood for each team winning the game than is implied by the player's skill, right? Because you're rigging the system by awarding a CIV pick, which makes that team who gets to pick a CIV for that match more likely to win. So that's all the issues with this system, or at least that's a bunch of them. I'm sure there's people who have different issues with it that I haven't brought up just yet. But there's every now and then there's some complaints about it. So I thought, let's tackle this one today. First, let's maybe look at Anti's take, actually. He's been outspoken about this from a perspective of somebody that oftentimes is the first captain, the highest rated player in the lobby. And again, I don't have the exact quotes of him right here. Yeah, there we got a comment here already by MJ in the chat, saying that deciding who is the captain by ladder rank can be a bit awkward, right? Because sometimes you've got Antiquity as a captain, and then you've got SK as a captain, and you're saying that that's bullshit. Nobody wants to be on the team with the lower ranked player in that case, and that ends up happening every now and then too, right? So even for the people who aren't the captains, it can be sort of an awkward situation. And there we go. Currently, we don't even discourage, well, at least we don't punish or try to police quitting in the lobby, right? So even I specifically asked for this because I couldn't believe that was the case. But under our current rule set, you are allowed to just quit the lobby before the game launches, but after the teams are made. So you can just sit in the lobby, wait half an hour, whatever. Finally the lobby fills up, teams are being made, and then somebody decides that they don't actually want to play that game because, I don't know, they've got a teammate they don't like, or they think they're going to lose that game likely, so they can just quit the game at that point. That's just crazy to me, right? Because nobody so far has really been abusing this, but it's such an obvious abuse if you're at all worried about that. It's just yeah, incredible really for me. But really, I'm also someone in the favor of not instituting a rule where none is needed. So as long as people aren't abusing that quitting being allowed in the lobby screen, we're good with that, right? I don't need to force a rule through here because apparently it's been working fine, but it seems like such a massive liability, such a massive loophole to me, right? You could just always make teams that are really unfair, and if the other captain decides to pick the team that is way better, you can just quit. You can just be the first captain, make unbalanced teams, have the other captain pick the stronger team, and then you can just quit and say, actually, I don't want to play this. I ran out of time, or I don't know, I don't like how these teams shook out or whatever. As of now, that would even be allowed. Yeah, that's shit, I agree. Nobody's been doing it, so I don't think we need a rule where no precedent suggests that there's an issue. But if people started abusing this, which would be really easy, people could actually, we'd then need to do something about that. So what's Antiquity saying on this issue? Antiquity is specifically complaining that the second captain has a pretty massive advantage, actually. He's saying that since you are the one who, no matter what the first captain decides to do in order, in terms of assigning CIV picks or balancing the players into the two teams, the second captain always gets to choose. So theoretically, the second captain should always have the better team if that is the criteria that the second captain is picking for. So that means the second captain will, on average, win more games than if the teams were random, right? Or if the teams were equal of skill, because he's always going to have the better team, again, if he prioritizes having the better team. So that means, theoretically, that the first and second captain playing against each other, their elo is artificially assimilated, right? The second captain gets a bit more wins than the first captain, assuming, for example, that Antiquity is playing against, I don't know, me 100 times, and I'm like way lower rated than him, right? But if I'm the second captain in that case, I'm going to win a couple more games than I should, in quote unquote, should, if we were playing with equal strength teams, just because I'm the one who always gets to pick which team I want to play with. So that's what he's saying he doesn't like. So what he's been proposing is actually a system where we leave everything intact, right? We've got the highest rated player divides the teams up, but then the second player isn't the one who gets to choose the teams. Instead, it's determined via random chance, right? We just flip a coin who actually gets which team. That's what Antiquity has proposed. And in terms of fairness, I feel that is really, really good, actually, right? Because the first captain still shouldn't make lopsided teams, because there's a 50% chance he gets the shit team if he makes the teams lopsided. Now, if he's fine with that, we got an issue there, right? Because people who don't care about winning, if they're the highest captain, it can just screw over the balance of the games. But that system would correct itself in that case, right? Because if you always end up trolling like that, you'll end up losing a lot of games, likely, and thus you won't no longer be the first captain. So maybe that's a good idea by Antiquity. I'd be at least down to check it out. We could survey community opinion on this again. That is a pretty decent system, though, in terms of pure fairness, in terms of generating fine teams. I feel like that would work out pretty well. If you are not right now. Yeah, Ava is in chat. Oh, what a legend. That's actually what he's been doing all along. Yeah, that's how he's been picking teams all along. He's always been the one to flip a coin for which team he actually picks. So yeah, actually that is exactly what Antiquity has suggested, making the Ava 118 strategy mandatory for everybody to use. So I wouldn't mind that, actually. I think that is a pretty decent system, but again, that would have to be a rule change, because the rules right now clearly state how teams are being made. I think, actually. I haven't even checked that, if that's in the rules or if that's just by, tradition, as we've done it. Yeah, actually, I think that's not even in the rules. So yeah, we could probably start doing that. So if it's not specifically mentioned in the rules, then we could just then that clearly falls under the jurisdiction of the lobby host, because everything that's not specified in the rules is to be decided by the lobby host by default, and then by moderators if there's a contest. But interesting. So apparently we could check that out and see how it goes. At least if hosts decided to adopt that system, would be a pretty cool idea. I'd be down for it. So that's Anti's suggestion specifically to address or to adjust that advantage that the second captain always has. Now, I personally don't even think that it's a bad thing, right? I think it is pretty decent idea to have the second captain have an advantage, so that the very top of the best of the best players on the ladder, who always are first captain, so that they have to work a little bit harder to climb. I feel like it's a decent system to have it be harder to climb the higher you get in rank. So actually, I don't think that the disadvantage for the first captain is a bad thing necessarily. But I would also be down to try out the other system here. Maybe if Anti or somebody else hosts a few lobbies in the future. And again, I might be wrong here, so better read the rules page again. But if it's true that there's no rule specifically saying how teams should be made, which I think there is no rule saying that right now, then yeah, every host would be free to institute such a rule on how teams are made in their own lobbies. Yeah, I'd be down to check it out anyways. So that's Anti's part on this topic. Now, what's Boogie been saying? Boogie, well, he just a couple of weeks ago, actually, I think, left a comment in the Steam chat suggesting a different way here. And he's been speaking from experience, as you can see right here. He suggests having the captains draft the teams, much like we're going to do it later today, actually, for the MPT tournament. So come back here in 2.5 hours and check out the draft for our next MPT tournament. That's going to be fun as well. But no, back on topic. So Boogie suggests having the 2 highest ranked players being the captains, captaining the 2 opposite teams, and then each of the captains getting to choose 1 player, taking turns choosing players for their team until all the players have been divided into the 2 teams. In his system, the second captain would get first pick. So again, there's an advantage there in theory. Well, not really in theory, right? That's just a practical advantage. So I feel like he's been suggesting second captain picking, first captain picking, second, first, and then we've got a 4v4 where the second captain again has the better players across the board, but it's just a different way of making the teams. He says actually that this system has been used in the past. I've got his comment right here. I can read it to you word for word. So he's worded it like this. Is this the right way to make teams? Referring to our current system. He proposes that at some date we stop using the method we use now and go back to pick ERAD style. I don't know what that refers to. The second captain has first pick. Just for a short time to see if this has any effect on the games we play. This was used a long time ago. I think we stopped using it was to speed up time spent in lobby. So that's the obvious flaw with that system, right? You don't want to be, I don't know, right? You don't want to be sitting in a lobby screen for ages. That's kind of the issue I see there. But the system itself is interesting, but if one were to implement such a draft in the lobby, I feel like a CIV draft would actually be just more interesting from a strategic perspective and would add more to the gameplay, in my opinion, than a player draft. But hey, who knows? Ava saying MPT is better like that. What are you referring to? Are you referring to the Boogie suggestion here? So if each captain got to pick 1 player at a time, you're saying that would be better for MPT? That's an interesting take. Could you explain why, especially for MPT, that would matter? Because I can't really see it, but again, I think that takes more time than, well, the time investment is probably not worth whatever you're adding there, if there's even a real added benefit, because just on intuition right now, I feel like that would give an even bigger advantage to the second captain than we have right now. And again, I don't hate the advantage that the second captain has, but I also don't see a reason for it to be enlarged. I think the current system is pretty fine there in terms of giving the second captain a small but barely noticeable edge in the games, which for most players is actually desirable, right? Because you don't want to you don't really just want to have an auto loss. You don't want to lose automatically just because the worst captain picked you on their teams. So So Ava is corroborating Boogie's opinion here. He's saying the second captain used to get the option of first pick player or CIV. Oh, so he's saying that was even more intricate. You could choose to pick the player first, or you could even pick a CIV if you gave the opponent the first player pick. That's interesting. That's really interesting, Ava. Yeah, I mean, I like intricate systems like that. I just don't think they're practical for our ladder purposes. Most people really, they've already, you got to think of that, right? We're in a time where most people, if you're not playing at rush hour times, most people have been waiting 20, 30 minutes for a game before it actually launches. Well, maybe not most people, but many of the people in the lobby. So then even adding another stage where you pick the teams or the civs is you ideally would want to have that process be as quick as possible, I feel like. Again, I'm not making a ruling here on this. I'm just presenting all the opinions that Anti and Boogie have expressed to me, and I'm putting them on this platform here to just to see what people think about it, because it's really interesting. I personally like Anti's suggestion a bit more, although I also like keeping the advantage for the second captain. I just don't think the time investment that Boogie is proposing would necessarily be worth it. But again, if a captain in my lobby mandated this system of making teams, I'd be down to check it out and see how it goes off for a few games. Apparently, the system that Boogie is proposing is known under the name ERAD or whatever. I don't personally know it, but apparently that is an actual term. Who knew? Anyhow, so that's what they're proposing. Please let me know if anybody in the comments has any more thoughts on this, or people on YouTube, if you're watching there, go to the comment section under topic number 1. You'll see an option to, for you to answer that topic number 1 comment with your own opinions on this. It's not even real MPT if there's no Aztec Zulu, to be honest. I don't know, Ava. I think all the ancients are pretty lovely. I like the... Yeah, I don't know. There's well, maybe you don't want to be Greece or something. I know you don't want to be Sumer, but I'm just saying. I don't need Aztec or Zulu. Aztec is really fun, but I don't even really like Zulu, if I'm being honest. So I don't need them in all of my MPTs. Anyhow, that's the opinions of our community members. Again, I'd check either of them out. If a host tried to implement them, I see obvious up and downsides of each of these possibilities, but yeah, we'll have to see what community thinks about that. I personally would just assume that most people just want to get into the game as quickly as possible, which, well, maybe Anti's suggestion could give equal or even faster lobby time, so that could be an upside there. But well, so be it then. I'll just, I guess, give the people a few more moments to chime in if they've got any takes that haven't been mentioned yet here. And otherwise, we'll slowly be transitioning to topic number 2, which, as you can see, is titled CTON scoring. So, potentially interesting as well. Interesting. NJ saying next lobby she hosts is gonna be LRAD system. So I guess that's what Boogie has been proposing. So yeah, I'll be down to check that out. I'll see. I'll be interested to see if other players would be down to check it out as well. But I guess we'd see how that goes. All right, looks like we can transition now. Topic number 2, CTON scoring rules. And here you can see I pulled up the quote. Once again, this time around it's from Avogadro, so well, a veteran of the community, but somebody who's just been picking up CIV3 again recently. And he's had thoughts about CTON scoring, but he's by no means been the only one to comment on this. He's saying, would like to see a rule where dead people's scores still count in a CTON. Never seen this in over 20 years of play. So it's the stereotypical the youth is so terrible take from yeah, the veterans, the senior members. But anyhow, disregarding the tone and the wording of this one, it's just one of the complaints that people might have about different variants of CTON. And CTON as well is a game mode that's not 100% specifically explained how it's supposed to function on the rules page. And that also is not by chance, but it is because CTON is supposed to be a mode where the host has, yeah, well, relative freedom in how the rules of the game are exactly supposed to function. Interestingly, though, on the ladder rules page, it specifically says that dead player's score does not count. So Avogadro is right there. It's explicitly stated that no, dead player score doesn't count, and they always just are ranked in the order that they finish. However, there's one exception on the rules page. I looked that up today, actually, and just by chance, really. I read that rule again, and it says there something along the lines of the order in which people have died cannot be changed in the score, in the final ranking, in the final placement. It's always going to be the order that they die in, except in Modern. So that's the one mod where CTON scoring rules apparently are different. However, well, maybe let's first read that rule that I just referenced so people know what exactly it says. Yep. Oh no, actually, I'm sorry. That's not the exception. I just read the rules again, and no, I didn't properly explain the exception that it applies in case of modern games. So no, what the website actually says is that in modern, scoring works different in team games, so that the dead player's score is scored differently in team games. And there's a couple of exceptions in terms of losing the capital and, well, yeah, how that affects your score. So no, for CTON, the website actually doesn't say anything at all. That is pretty interesting. Exactly. However, rule number 9 is the real interesting one for this topic. Because rule number 9 says, scoring rules for a free-for-all game must be agreed upon before the game begins. So what that means is basically the host decides the rules for this for any given CTON game before the game starts. That's the essential issue here. Because if you do not declare any rules before the game starts, it is assumed that you are using the standard rules for the mod that you're hosting. That applies to teamers as well as CTON games. So the issue here again is the modern mode, though. Because in every other CTON, you just die, you're ranked in that place. But in modern, people actually track your score. So that's quite interesting, right? Because that makes it so, because you get bonus points for killing people in CTON. You can actually rank quite high in a modern CTON, even if you die somewhat early, or not early, but even if you die, right? If you die early, then you're probably not gonna rank very high. But say you've killed 2 people and then you die 10 turns before the end of the game, there's still a decent chance you might finish with the top 4 or something. It's plausible, depending on how big you were before you actually ended up dying. So modern CTON is weird in that regard. And what Avogadro is saying here is, well, the issue is that our rules page really doesn't say a lot about CTONs. It just says if you wanna use any special rules, you gotta declare them before the game. So, but implying here, well, or implied here, is the fact that most CTONs, nobody even says a word about the rules before they are launched. So that means the standard ladder rules are assumed for that CTON, and they are different in modern than in any other game mode, which is a bit confusing. I gotta admit, right? It's something that maybe as a technicality, if you know, if you're the host and you know that there's a player in your lobby that maybe hasn't played CTON a lot, or this mode of CTON, whatever mode you're hosting, you should probably just very briefly restate the rules, just so everybody knows what the standard rule set for that CTON is, even if you're not making any changes to that standard rule set. So that's the issue with CTON, especially scoring when you die. And then the other side of it is that's not something Avogadro has complained about here, but the other relevant thing in scoring CTONs is the kill bonus, right? Because in every CTON you're rewarded for getting kills, and that means, of course, that's a somewhat necessary rule to promote aggressive play and people not just booming and defending. But the issue there is that's also not a consistent bonus. So if I'm not completely mistaken, you get 25 kills, 25 points per kill in a modern CTON, but then you get also 25 points per city you take that you did not yourself plant. So that's really awkward, because now you've got to really keep track of how many cities did that guy take, how many did I take, and then there's city elimination as well. So it gets really confusing in that regard. I'm not saying that that's a bad scoring rule, but I'm just saying that these rules should probably be restated before every CTON game if you know that there's a player in the lobby who hasn't played a bunch of CTONs in that mod before. Maybe that's a good idea, because I'm also against putting this into the rules on the website, because I feel like, I mean, I guess maybe if we are using the standard rule set, then it should also be mentioned on the website what that standard rule set is. So maybe that would be a good idea, actually. But as of now, we're just going on conventional rules, and those should then be restated, because again, we don't have them noted anywhere for people to look up unless I'm mistaken here. Well, yeah, the scoring rules for CTONs are quite diverse, right? Because in UU, for example, you get 50 points conventionally for each kill that you get, right? And if somebody decided to host a UU CTON tomorrow, where you get 47.5 points for every kill you get, and that's totally fine too, and that rule applies in the game as long as it's been disclosed before the game was started by the host. So yeah, CTON scoring is quite confusing, I guess, in that sense, simply because it's not explained anywhere and because it can be amended by the host in every single game. So that's something to maybe ponder about. Maybe we should put this standard rule set that we're using for every CTON and every mod. We should put that on the website or on the Google Drive, or at least somewhere where people can look it up. Similar to the website that Tarol's been making, right? The UU res cheat sheet and the modern resources cheat sheet, where you can look up which resources produce which unit. That's some useful links as well. Maybe all that stuff could be accessible to new players if they actually ended up needing some help in well, any given CTON that they wanted to participate in. Just because, again, 90% of CTONs, the rules are not being mentioned before the game is launched, and thus we do kind of treat it as though we had a standard rule set right now, but in effect we don't have that written down anywhere. So maybe that would be a good idea. Again, still permitting hosts as they please to amend that rule set for their proper lobby, as is the case right now, but just to have it recorded somewhere. Sounds good to me. If there's any more opinions on this topic, feel free to leave them in the chat here, or again in the YouTube comments under the comment by me, topic number 2, and we'll move on in a couple of moments here, unless people want to share more opinions on CTON scoring and how to well, do or don't change the rules around that. All right, looks pretty settled, this topic, not too controversial. Not that I expected it to be especially controversial, but still a good talk. Give me a second then as I transition onto topic number 3. All right. We've only got 5 scheduled topics for today, but as always, people can bring up their own topics in chat after the show, or right now, in between topics as well, of course. So it's always time to address your last-minute topics that you want to have mentioned as well. Give me a second here as I prepare for topic number 3. How did I even call that? Yeah. All right, how to manage quits and drops. Probably should have swapped the word order around a little bit there in the headline, but you know, I don't even care about that. It's understandable as is. So there you go. Moving on now. Topic number 3. Vivid having an opinion here on quitting and dropping in games, and if there's something that should be done about that. He also sent this message in the Steam group a couple of weeks ago, I believe, so it's maybe old news at this point, but he wanted me to bring it up, as you can see, so I'll be touching on that. And again, it's another one where I'm very curious what the community interest in it is. So what has he actually said? I'll just read it out. You can also, again, as always, read along with me. Bottom right corner. Vivid saying, during your next town hall, can you gauge opinion about deducting points for drops? Also proposing a rule that nobody's allowed to leave game for reload without majority approval from all present players. All right, so he's saying 2 different things here, of course, right? He's bringing up 2 different but related questions. First, he's interested in community opinion about deducting points for drops. So if somebody drops, he doesn't specify the rule here, right? It's just a general, he's very clearly just interested in general opinion here. Just like if you remember, couple of months back, I had this survey, this community survey about king gifting and, well, purposely losing in games. So, or, well, dying on purpose, more to be more accurate, actually. And this is very much the same thing. Vivid is not proposing a specific rule here in this first section. He's just asking, is there interest in the community in general in having some sort of point punishment for people who drop? Now that's very vague, because I don't know if that means for everybody who drops one time, if that means for repeated drops, if that means for potentially game-altering drops, which would be hard to gauge what that is, or what that refers to, right? So it's intentionally vague, but I think Vivid likely intended it to be that way. It's an interesting thing to bring up, though, right? Because in the second part, let's now mention that, he explains why that even is relevant. Well, actually, no, he doesn't explain that. I cut off his explanation. His explanation was a well-timed drop can very much be game-altering and change the outcome of the game. So to discourage that or to make that impossible, he's saying you should punish that team with points. Now, personally, well, I shouldn't start out with this, so let me tackle it from a different angle. I do think that it's a good idea to do anything you can that's realistically going to reduce the amount of quits and drops. That's a good idea. Especially the second part, specifically referring to if you are in a disagreement, or if you want to reload the game because of a turn skip or a bug or whatever, it could make sense for people not to quit as quickly as they do right now, because right now, whenever somebody believes something went wrong, they might just quit the game and force a reload. And that is annoying, especially there's a few people who are very, very quick to quit the game in those situations. And I get the frustration with that. I totally buy that. So that part I can understand. And I think, of course, we should probably be, all of us, a little more patient in games when there's a pause or when there's a discussion about potential foul play, bugs, or whatever. Makes sense to not be quit as quickly there. Now, I've got problems with both his solutions that he's proposing, though. For the first one, deducting points for drops, to me, is a bad solution. The only way in which you could structure this rule so that we would actually do what he's asking it to do is you would have to analyze, a moderator would have to look at the game, decide how many points that team gained from that drop, how big of an advantage that drop was for that team, and then make sure at least that many points are deducted from that team's score in the end. And that's the only way you could make this rule where it would accomplish what you're asking it to accomplish. Because what he's asking it to accomplish, I'm not showing this on screen right here, but he's saying a well-timed drop can alter the outcome of a game. So he's specifically trying to address drops that change the outcomes of games or give a team an advantage, and he wants to take that advantage away. Now, the only way, again, to do that would be to have every single game manually reviewed by a moderator and decided how many points should be deducted for each given drop and how big of an impact those drops were. That's a huge issue to me, because first of all, who's going to be that moderator who decides how many points were gained or lost by any given drop? That's near impossible to determine, in my opinion. Second of all, how do you even prove somebody dropped? People don't think about that. But what if we've got a game going on, somebody drops, and after the game, their opponents report that to a moderator. They say, oh yeah, this guy dropped twice in this game. Please review these instances and tell us and deduct some points from them because that guy dropped twice. And what if what if the guy who dropped, what if his team just says no, nobody else, none of our players ever dropped. There were no drops in this game. How could a moderator even check that? How do we police something where the evidence is so difficult to attain? The only way to attain the evidence would be if in the game players would save their autosave files during the drop, and then when reloading you get a second autosave file of that turn, and it differs from the first one that you got. So that would then be evidence for there actually a drop having occurred there. Now you could still doctor that save file, by the way, but that would be obvious in terms of file creation date. But all of that would have to be analyzed by moderators, and I think that's just impossible to police. So the only practical way to introduce a rule like that would to have just a flat punishment, a flat 5-point score deduction for every drop, and a drop. Well, the evidence for a drop would then just be, I don't know, 5 people in the lobby would just have to corroborate that a drop occurred, and that would then be, and that's difficult again, because who do you actually always know who caused the drop? That's difficult, right? How about city screen bombard? Who gets deducted a point for city screen bombard? Because if you bombard mid-turn, you can argue it's actually your fault. You are not supposed to bomb mid-turn. See how complicated this rule change would be. How do you, who actually causes the drop? That's not even always clear. So that's the issue. So the only practical way would be to just have say like 5 people in the lobby need to agree somebody dropped in order for a drop to be assigned, and then a flat punishment for every drop. That's the only feasible way without having it be way too much work and way too corruptible, way too, well, difficult for the community to even see through what the moderators are doing. But that doesn't even solve the problem, right? Because what is a 5-point deduction going to do? It's just going to encourage people who, well, to drop if they can gain 6 points with it. That's the thing, right? If you use a flat punishment for every drop, then it's just going to encourage people to drop as long as they can get more score from that drop than the flat punishment is. So how could this rule work? Again, I like the sentiment. I like the idea because you want to discourage people from dropping from games, obviously. But score punishment just can never be fair, I don't think, right? Because you would have to put the flat limit so high. Exactly, Ava agrees with me. If I'm lazy and I bomb at the wrong time, then I'm actually the one who causes the drop again. But anyhow, that's the thing. If you would have to put the limit or the flat punishment for dropping so ridiculously high that it would just always cause you to lose the game. Otherwise, people could abuse it in certain cases. And then at that point, what does it even do anymore, right? You just auto lose the game if you drop once. Nice. Who wants that? Nobody wants it. Vivid surely doesn't want that. So again, I think Vivid has a nice thought here, but his solution is not practical at all. And the only way that it would actually work, the only way it would accomplish what he wants it to accomplish would have to be done by moderators in subjective opinion decisions, which people like Vivid hate. And it would be incredibly taxing on the moderators in terms of workload. So I don't think this is the angle we can go with here. Especially, Ava saying he thinks it's fine as is. Well, fair enough, right? But people are still allowed to complain, of course. So I think the feedback there by Vivid is valid, but I just don't think he's presented an opinion that is feasible and addresses the way in a manner that is, well, just simply possible for us to actually go through with. And again, the second part is also an interesting one, right? You could say you can't leave the game before half of the lobby agrees with you that the game should be reloaded. That's the second part that he's asking for. And that's interesting too, right? Because again, I like the idea that we should make it so people have to wait a little bit longer before they quit, before they press escape, Alt F4 on the keyboard. Just because sometimes people quit games that weren't even necessary to quit. So we got unnecessary reloads. Sometimes that does occur, and Vivid would know better than everyone else because he's one of the players that plays most games in all of the community. But the thing here as well is I'm not sure how practical that is. The issue is that one team, if they kill an opponent, and if it's a 4 versus 3 game, for example, they could just always block reloads, right? What the fuck is that, right? You couldn't just never quit. You could just never quit the game, no matter if the enemy team is bug abusing, if they're doing whatever. You could just never quit the game and force a reload, because as Vivid's proposed rule says, you must only quit the game if the majority of the lobby agrees with you. So if the enemy team is in the majority, shit out of luck for you. See? Now I'm being intentionally a bit over dramatic here, but frankly, I think that rule, as he words it here, can't go into effect either. I don't think that really is feasible. What you could do if you wanted to accomplish something like that, I think, is you could say you must only quit the game if you've got evidence, or well, how to say, you are only allowed to quit a game and force a reload if you've got evidence that a moderator can check out in hindsight and agree with you. So we could make it, for example, everybody is allowed to quit and force a reload if they think something went wrong, but somebody can then report you for that if they think you quit without a reason, without a good reason. And if they report you, you have to show evidence to a moderator for why you quit. You have to show a screenshot, you have to show a quote from somebody that something bad went on or whatever. You have to bring some sort of chat evidence, media evidence, whatever. And then that moderator who looks at the evidence says that was a valid reason to reload the game, so no punishment is applied. Or the moderator can say, well, actually, no, you haven't shown me any evidence. And even if it was a good reason, as long as you don't show me any evidence, I have to punish you. And then we could assign a punishment of some sort. That would be a feasible way of addressing this, I think. And that would actually be very possible and very quite easily enforceable, I would assume. The only issue is I don't really think that we need a rule for this at all. Personally, I think quitting too early in games is annoying, but it's rare enough for me to be fine with as is right now. If community feels different about this, I'm gladly gonna of course accept any rule changes that the community votes on. But as of now, I think we're in a pretty fine state here. Yeah, right. So again, Vivid saying we should make it so, oh well, he's just proposing that we could make it so nobody's allowed to force a reload until the majority of the lobby agrees that we should be reloading. I don't think that's feasible at all. I think as soon as your team is in the majority in the lobby because you killed an enemy, you can just always block reloads. So we can't have a rule like that, in my opinion. So my only proposition, if the community felt like we needed a rule in this on this subject, my only proposition would be everybody is always allowed to force a reload if they have a good reason for it. People can report you after the game if you force a reload without a valid reason, and then you have to show evidence to a moderator for why you were forcing that reload. And the moderator then gets to decide whether it was or wasn't a valid reason. That's my only proposition. But again, I don't think we need this rule right now. But if people who are playing more games than me, because I'm not playing a whole lot, let's face it, if there's people who play more than me and who feel like we do need a reason, or we do need some sort of rule to discourage the forcing of reloads, then that would be my personal suggestion. Again, we might be doing a survey on this topic because he specifically asked me to gauge community opinion about these rules. So maybe I'll actually make a survey and have the community opinion be gauged. But I'll think about that because it's a very particular topic in any case. Still, even survey or no survey, Feel free to leave your opinions on this in the Steam chat, on the YouTube comments, in the Twitch chat, wherever, because it's an interesting one to debate, especially if people have feasible rule propositions on this subject, because they are very difficult to come by, as I've just explained. All right, looks like this topic is also dried out quite a bit, and I can't believe this. It's actually exactly 1 minute before the scheduled time for Lib to come on and share his thoughts on his topic. So I would be transitioning to that next. However, Lib hasn't contacted me yet. He's supposed to come on right now in this very second. He hasn't contacted me yet. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull that fifth topic ahead, and we're gonna be talking about that next. Again, this is the last chance for people to comment on the topic number 3, on the Vivid quitting and dropping topic. Please, if you've got any more thoughts on this here in the live stream, post them right now. Otherwise, I'll see if Lib comes online in the next minute or two. And if he doesn't, I'll move the topic number 5 ahead and postpone his interview call for after that topic, is what I'm thinking right now. So a couple more moments to get your comments in, or other topics. If at this point you want to suggest a completely different topics, any opinions that you've just come up with here, anything, could be, again, doesn't have to be in relation to Vivid's topic here at all. Could be anything. Now is your time to bring up your own topics here live during the stream. But I'll prepare to transition into topic number 5 as things stand. Actually, let me go to the bathroom real quick. Let me go to the bathroom real quick. Something's just coming up there, so I apologize. I'll load up topic number 5 in a moment here though, so don't go anywhere. All right, everybody. So, as Lib hasn't actually made it here yet, I'll just pull the final topic a little bit ahead, and now we'll tackle the closing thoughts first, which is a bit awkward. So we'll see if Lib shows up here within the next 10 minutes or something. In any case, what I really wanted to comment on here, or well, just talk about again, is the MPT tournament that I'm hosting next February. The sign-up period has actually closed already, so apologies if you didn't get in. I've had a more than a month-long sign-up period for this tournament now, so I'm confident that we've got a good crop of players here. And the reason I'm mentioning the tournament today is because after the stream right here, which is probably going to end relatively soon, I'm going to be having around 2 hours from now the player draft stream for that MPT tournament. So you're going to be seeing Cheese, Antiquity, and Halu choosing the players who they want to play with for that tournament. Maybe because we've got some time left here to kill, just because I want to give Lib a few minutes in case he still ends up showing up here. I'll show you guys the participants for that tournament and how that draft is gonna actually end up looking like. So again, I just want to drive interest here for the MPT tournament. It's going to be happening mid-February, so it's going to start February 12th, and we're going to be playing a game each day until the end of that week. So it's a 7-day tournament with 9 games actually, because we're going to be playing 2 games on weekend days. So it's going to be exciting. Encourage everybody to tune in. I'll stream all the games live on this channel here, of course. It's going to be very interesting because for the first time, maybe ever, but certainly for the first time since I've been part of the community, we're going to have a 3-team tournament, meaning not that we've got 3 teams playing in the tournament. We're going to have 3 teams playing in each game. So it's going to be a 2v2v2. You heard that right, yeah, a 2v2v2 MPT tournament. That's going to be very exciting. We're going to be getting that in mid-February, again, mid-February next week. And the players that are playing in the tournament, I'll show you guys real quick as well, because I've got the list right here. Let me pull it up on stream. That is a bit clunky always, but shouldn't be an issue. There you go up. How do I do that? Best possible way. That was not the best possible way. Yeah, that looks good. All right. Let me just pull up the player participants list just so you know who's going to be playing. It's going to be very interesting. Even if you didn't sign up, it's going to be very interesting to watch that tourney, I believe. There you go. Oh, nice. It's actually quite practical. There you go. You've got the player list on the screen right here. So that's the names and the ranks of all the players on the MPT ladder. Again, tournament mid-February, so mark your calendars. February 12th, the tourney is going to start. 1 game a day, 2 games on the weekend. So 7 days, 9 games of MPT, 2v2v2 action. It's going to be great. And the draft for this tournament is going to take place just under 2 hours from now on this channel. So again, maybe get some food, get some dinner, some lunch, whatever, wherever you are. But make sure to come back here in just under 2 hours to witness who Auntie, Cheese, and Halu want on their respective teams. For the team draft, as well as you can see in the Steam group, the first player to choose their team is gonna be, well, the first player to get a pick for their team is gonna be Cheese, then Halu, and Anti is going to be the last one. He's then going to get to pick 2 players and so on. So you can already speculate what the teams are going to end up looking like. You can see all the participants on screen right there, and again it's Cheese picking first, then Halu, then Anti, as oh no, sorry, I got that the wrong way around. It's Anti picking first, then Halu, then Cheese. My apologies. So the pick order is Anti, Halu, Cheese, Cheese, Halu, Anti, Anti, Halu, Anti, Halu, Cheese, Cheese, Halu, Anti, and so on until all the players are picked. That's going to be a great event. I encourage everybody to tune in both to the player draft 2 hours from now, as well as the actual tournament. 3 weeks about. Oh, well, 2.5, 3 weeks-ish from now. So that's going to be great. Again, it's going to be MPT, basically unmodified, just very slim changes for streamability and watchability. But it's going to be 2 players versus 2 players versus 2 players. So 3 teams in each given game. That's going to be exciting. There you go. Hit me with your predictions. Which captain is going to get the best team? Which captain is going to win the tourney? Which of these players is underrated? I want all the opinions, of course, in the Steam, in the YouTube chat, anywhere you would like. And we're going to get that action underway soon-ish. So again, that's going to be great fun in this tourney as well. I don't actually have any more real closing thoughts here. Although, no, actually, I think I'm gonna mostly leave it at that. It does seem like we've got everything off our hearts that we wanted to be talking about today, except of course the call in interview with the lib. Sad about that in terms of yeah, we haven't actually had a lot of call-ins in this latter town hall so far. People haven't been calling in much, so would have been a nice opportunity there to get more community opinion involved. But it looks like it's just not supposed to be today because he's still not online, despite confirming with me yesterday that it was actually supposed to happen. So apologies for that. That topic is just not going to be able to be hit on. Anyhow, I think I'll close the town hall stream down here. Come back in here 1 hour 45 minutes from now to witness the captains drafting their tournament teams. But that's all that I can leave you guys with for today, it seems. Thanks for coming out, especially Ava and MJ for their input here in the chat. And I'll see you guys hopefully later for the next stream. Otherwise, of course, in February, end of February, after the tournament, I'll be doing the next moderated town hall, unless anything goes terribly wrong. Until then, guys, thanks for thanks for showing up as always, and I'll see y'all later.